Hello there to all my Year 10 students currently taking their GCSEs, soon to go into Year 11. Making a quick video, don't panic, it's not going to have my face in it all the way through, but I've just got a new webcam, so I've joined the 21st century. This is a bit weird, I'm talking into a camera, but you know, nevertheless I'm going to try and help you with your circle sheet and all the work that I've set you in lockdown. Hopefully school will be able to reopen fairly soon, in which time you'll hopefully get an email contact from school and they'll be able to tell you what's going on. And I'm hoping to do some live lessons just following the train that we're going to have in a little bit of time or so. This video is going to show you how to refine your circle sheet, and I've used one of our students who's in one of the two groups that I teach, the feedback that I've sent them, but I might also put other bits in as well. And it's mainly to help you with your circle sheet and your hexagon sheet. So I'll put what the feedback are on for them, and it will explain hopefully what's going on. But you guys can email me anytime with any questions you've got about these sheets. So just keep those emails coming in, guys, and I hope this video is some help to you. Thank you. Most of you will have already started the circle sheet, and I really appreciate those of you guys who've been emailing me with photos and keeping me up to date with where you've been. This is the guide that I showed you in lesson, and I also sent out that just shows you how all of the circles get put together and then extended from. But if you look closely in the top left, you'll see that you need your large circles, 3 of them, your drawings, a couple of peacock feathers or other natural forms, your paisley shapes, and you'll also need your 3 smaller circles. They all get added onto your sheet and extended from. If you need any support or any help at all, remember to look at that bit.ly link. It's just showing here on the screen. It's bit.ly/A art 1 GCSE, and you've got to get all of the capital letters in the right place. I have sent you this link out as well, so you should have it on there, and like it's showing you, you've got help for the circle sheet, the hexagon sheet, and also anything else that you need there in terms of artists. This image is from one of our lovely Year 10 students. I won't mention names so I don't get anyone into trouble, but this is a really good example of a sheet which is really close to being finished. It's just going to be those little finishing touches that you can then do. Some of the other examples that I'm going to show you in the video will be in a little bit more of a different state of completion, but it just helps to see it. And if you can do, email me with your images and I'll be able to do a little next step sheet a little bit like this. On this sheet you can see where I've worked into each of the different little bits, and I've then labelled around the outside what I've done. In most cases it's a matter of blending colours, making sure you really think about getting in that detail, and take the time to look at your sheet to see, are there any empty areas? Could there be anything which could just be developed that little bit further to get you those higher grades? So have a little look at what I've put on here, and this might help you with your own sheet. In this next image on the screen, you can see a little bit of the previous version in the top left, and then what I've done to try and help the student refine their work in the bottom right. And it's just taking that student forward through all of the different tips and the problems that you'll encounter when you do this sheet. So have a little look on the screen now, and you'll be able to see that these are generally the kind of problems that you'll encounter, such as having flat, single and basic colours. They need blending, making sure that you always vary the types of patterns that you're doing and vary the thicknesses. And the other bit that I'm always moaning about in class, please make sure whenever you're drawing, look at what you're drawing. Whenever you're using an artist style, for God's sake, look at the help sheets. That will help you. Make sure you're looking carefully at them, not just guessing. Because if you guess and you just keep using colour and like the same patterns, you're going to get a very basic grade at the end. So please have a good look at the tips and the problems on this sheet. Just freeze the video if you need to, and that will then all be helping you to get towards some better next steps for your sheet. This sheet shows the refinements that I made for one student, and it points at making sure that you look at the before and after with your sheet. So if I send you a little bit of feedback, make sure you keep looking and switching between what it was like before, what you currently got it like, and then the after with the next steps. These next couple of images here are just showing you that full screen, so you can just have a little flick between the two, and maybe it might be a good idea if you try and have a little look yourself, see what it's like before, see what it's like after, and try and make your own decisions about your sheet, about how you could refine your own work. On this bit of the video, you might need to zoom in or possibly pause it. These next 2 slides that I've put on there, they just show you all of the different suggestions that I've put on for this student to make on their sheet. And if you have a look, you can see where I'm suggesting that they fill space, how they use detail, making sure they look at different artist techniques, and trying to get as much detail as possible. Remembering that all of this work that you're doing goes towards your GCSE coursework. I made it into 2 slides just because of the volume of information that I needed to put on. So hopefully, if you have a good look through with these sheets, it will help you with your own sheets. The next 3 images that you're going to see in the video are all going to be of different circle designs. This first one is of Mogilevsky. The second one is Biro Designs in general, and the other one is also another Mogilevsky / Kenzo Minami design, which is a bit like Daisaku Kawada, who we've been looking at. But each one of these sheets shows you how you can take flat basic colour areas, and just by using pattern, whether it's biro or whether it's adding tone or extra texture, you can really start to give a lot of detail into your circle designs. So they're just something that I want you to bear in mind, guys, when you're doing your own work. These next images that are on the screen are showing different amounts of student feedback that are also on that bit.ly Art1 GCSE link. Just remember, it's case sensitive. It's just showing a little bit about where you can go and view these as well. If you can't quite see them on the video clearly enough, you can see them on that link. Most of the tips that I'm suggesting are often about ways of filling space or using varieties in patterns, or suggesting sometimes artists. But when you are filling the space yourself and when you're working on your own sheets, you can choose whichever artist help sheet that you want to inspire you, or your own artists that you find from the internet, from sites like Pinterest or Behance. It's totally down to you. Other times when you're looking at this feedback, you might see that I've suggested ways of splitting up the space to make it easier to fill that space, because filling a large white space just off the top of your head when you're just seeing that for the first time can be really tricky. So find ways of breaking that space up. It doesn't just have to be thin lines like I've just put on this example here, where I've then tried to have like circles or paisleys coming off the side. You could use artist shapes and then use different artist decorations within them. It's totally down to you. These last two examples here are just showing students that are really quite close to finishing their circle sheet, that are just giving them final little tips and suggestions to really refine their work and get it up to the highest grade possible. I'm going to leave the circle sheet advice there and just move straight onto the hexagon sheet now. Now, the task that I set right at the start of lockdown was to create 3 hexagon drawings. Now, that can be quite tricky, because you could do with looking at the images that you're drawing from. We don't all at home have an inexhaustible source of natural forms, so we have to rely on the internet to draw, especially in lockdown. Some students made up their hexagons on PowerPoint by copying and pasting different images together, and then they drew from those afterwards. This image here is showing you a really good process and breakdown from one of the current year 10 students that shows how they've started to build up different layers of drawing. The image on the screen here shows how the 3 hexagons will then eventually go onto the sheet that you make. Some things we're going to have to wait until we get back into school to use, such as the octagon repeats that I'm going to print off for you, but you can definitely complete the paisleys, the Frank Stella, the origami and the hexagons, which is what this video is supposed to help you with. Most of the origami stuff you can find off YouTube, off Google. There's some great guides and some great videos on there. You just gotta have a little look and see what you can find. The following images are from feedback that I've given to one of our Year 10 students that just shows how you can move something on from having mainly flat colours, some empty space, just a little bit of sort of like basic colour in places, to then what you could then do afterwards. So have a little look at the before and after slides that are following after this slide here. This just shows you key tips and next steps for your hexagons. Please make sure you pay attention to them and you have a little look at them and use them as a checklist when you're doing your own hexagons. All the bits there highlighted in yellow are the key things that we need you to know about, such as avoiding solid and flat colours, which I've said before, using detail, making sure you observe and look at what you're drawing, and then using different thicknesses, and don't have outlines that are too thick. That's quite a crucial one for a lot of you guys with the drawing. If you were drawing in fine liner or biro, your outlines can often be too thick, so try and tone them out and fade them out from that thick outline. If you are just starting a hexagon, a little bit like this example here, where you might have drawn one natural form such as a leaf, this person decided to fill those in with pattern and not detail from observation, which is fine as long as you get a variety of drawing and decorative designs in your work. The main thing will be is what do you use to fill the space up? Most people are finding that they want to fill space in their hexagons with similarly themed objects. So in this case, if a leaf's been used, then I've added a few trees and leaf outlines to get this person started as part of the feedback. I'm hoping that when these hexagons come back, they are unbelievably full as they possibly can be. In this feedback slide, you can see in the top left, that's the original image, and in the bottom right, that's where I've made my possible suggestions for refinements. Key thing is those black outlines. If they are too dark and they are too bold, it's going to look too cartoony. So you've got to watch out for those solid outlines in the same way that you've got to look out for solid colour. So what I've mainly suggested is, in this hexagon, is that those black lines are broken up and that they are faded out using tone. If you have a look at how I've changed the tone on the leaf, I'm still keeping some of the background coming through, but I've used a biro, you can use a fine line or a pencil, to calm down that solidness of that black line. Also in the background space, I've also used red biro to draw over the top of the yellow solid colour area. That red, even though it doesn't represent the true colour of what's being drawn as leaves and holly leaf in the little left hand side bit there, it doesn't fully represent those colours, but it does show a really good connection to the harmonious colours on the colour wheel. So think about what colours you're going to use and think about how you're going to fill the space. Don't just use basic outlines. In the top right there, when you can see the honeycomb pattern, I've suggested that it's not just left alone to be just the basic honeycomb shape, but instead maybe you could include larvae in there, and maybe it could be that you could show little bees crawling around at the top there just to make it that little bit more interesting. In this hexagon, where insects have been drawn into the main centre, and then there's like a green frame around the outside, like a pinkish sort of colour underneath it, and there's like a dragonfly in the bottom right hand side there. This could be really refined if those flat colours were dealt with. Sometimes on top of those flat colours, why don't you use an artist design? I've suggested that you use Vanessa Blair. That could be a really good relevant connection because she uses animal prints and she uses shapes that connect with animals, like the peacock feather, like leopard print, tiger print, that sort of thing. Or you might decide to use paisley shapes over the top. You don't have to use colour. It might be that you introduce like a black and white element into there to make it more contrasting. The main bit of refinement though in this particular image was all about the observational drawing. You have to make sure that you're looking really carefully at what you're drawing from, otherwise your drawings could potentially look quite basic. What I've done here is I've suggested that this student uses a biro, or that you can use a pencil or additional pencil crayons to really add extra detail back into those drawings. It's not just about giving something an outline to make it look detailed. You have to look at the detail. Sometimes what I've done is I've gone a little bit further and I've exaggerated the detail I can actually see and put more detail and more texture on those animals, or in this case the insects, to make them look just that little bit more realistic. This is the final image that I was going to put on this video because I don't want to talk for too long, and I'll probably get told off for using this image by the student whose image it is. This was a really brilliant submission for the most recent deadline. This shows their attempts so far at 3 different hexagons. You can clearly see that they've tried to use different media in both. The space is filling up absolutely fantastically, which is great to see, especially that one on the right hand side there. It's almost as if all of the space has been filled with some sort of colour or detail. The key thing for this student now to do will be to make sure that they look back and think, right, what about the image on the left hand side there, finishing off that pencil design, making sure they carry the tone all the way through. Also, maybe watch out for those harsh outlines. Try and blend away from those harsh outlines where possible. And anywhere where you're using colour, whether that's in the right hand side one or the middle one, you might choose to use a few more opposite colours in there, just so you can start to bring a little bit more blending into what you're doing. I hope this video has helped you guys, and if you got any questions, you know you can just email me anytime. Alright, all the best in the rest of lockdown. I hope to receive emails from you pretty soon. Bye, toodles.